It's a money game. It's
Mm-hmm.
all about the money. It's a business. It's an evil business. And your health is not, if they make you healthy, you're no longer a customer. And that's not how they look at it. They want you to be their customer. And they want to keep, there's lots of cures for even cancer and different things. It's all quashed, or they attack that industry. They start taking down the websites from that. They just, anyone that has cured people of cancer, they've got way higher rates than going through the chemotherapy route. And yet they're attacked. They're shut down. And why is that? Because they're tapping into their budget. They don't want to be, it's a money machine.
Welcome. I am Anders Bolling, and this is Mind the Shift, a podcast about a shifting world and an integrating world. In this episode, we are going to look into some of the things in this changing world that we perhaps are overlooking a bit and that we should be more aware of. My guest today is Roy Coughlan. Welcome, Roy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Now, we've gotten to know each other a bit in cyberspace. I don't know, nobody says cyberspace anymore, but anyway, online or whatever. Over the last few weeks on this course that we've been taking, and you come across as a person that is not only very likable and helpful, but also very industrious and with a very interesting background and an interesting story. You're running no less than, is it 4 podcasts?
4 podcasts, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's really impressive. And you've also you have written a book. Has it been released yet, or
no? I printed about 20 copies and got it into people's hands just to get feedback. But yeah, it's not officially released yet.
But it's soon coming out there, yeah. And then you're also an Irishman in Poland.
Exactly.
So let's start in that end then. Why did you end up in Poland?
I met a Polish girl in Ireland, and when I was visiting her parents in the city, it's a city called Vulture, I realized it was kind of, the real estate was very cheap, so I invested a bit and then decided to set up a company for foreign investors, Irish, English, American, buying the property there. I didn't have an intention of moving here, but the relationship finished. And I had, at that stage, invested in a site for building 30 apartments. And I probably would have lost everything unless I moved. And that's how I ended up in Łódź in Poland. But at the same time, there's loads of Polish were going to Scandinavian countries, going to the UK and Ireland. So I was kind of giving them a high five on the way I was going the opposite direction. But it turned out to be good because I was working in the construction industry and the market tanked with you when the economy crashed.
So this was back in 2008-9 or something?
Yeah, I had moved, I think, in 2007, so just before it happened. But they were building something like 96,000 houses in Ireland, and it went down to 4,500. So you can imagine all the tradespeople in that industry. That's why they started emigrating, mainly to Canada and Australia.
And this story around your business that you were having at that time is also the reason why you wrote the book and wanted to start this last podcast, I understand. But exactly. You can just briefly tell us about the 4 podcasts you have, because they're very different, each of them.
Exactly.
So I just can't wrap my head around how you can find time to run all these 4. But just tell us.
The first one was the speaking podcast. So I realized that to make change in the world, you need to be a good speaker. And I wasn't a good speaker. I hated public speaking. And when I decided that I wanted to write this book, I had seen some very good speakers and I knew, okay, I need to be a good speaker. So when I came back, I jumped into Toastmasters, joined another club, and I've even formed a club. It's over 2 years now, a morning club, and just entered competitions and went from being terrified to being competent on stage. And I knew to help to give some help the people to improve their public speaking, a podcast would be good. And I have a lot of contacts around the world. So I think I have 20 different countries of people that have been on the show. And they're just giving tips on how they went from being shy to being very competent. Some people have been on stage with presidents and with Richard Branson and everything. Yeah, and there's
That's
people with
cool.
TEDx speeches that have over 7 million, and they're kind of showing how they done it and how they do workshops, how they create events, and every single episode is different. You would think you'd run out of ideas after, but the reality is every single person has a different way of preparing for a speech, their journey, and yeah, so that's the main.
That's great.
The next one was
Yeah.
meditation, the meditation podcast, because I started meditating when I went through kind of my journey. The one thing, like I'm jumping back a bit, but with the
Sure.
real estate and everything in Poland, I kind of lost everything and had a lot of court cases. And by going through that, I saw so much corruption, because when you know you're innocent, or when you know that something is wrong and you still lose, you're going, hey, what's going on here? And then you start researching it, you see it in different countries. And that became my mission then, that people wouldn't go through the same thing, because there's millions losing their homes and it's all orchestrated. And I just didn't want that to happen. But what saved me, because it's a tough time when you lose everything. I lost my house, my personal belongings, the whole lot. Meditating helped me. So it was a 6-phase meditation process, a guided one. And it just kind of allowed me to forgiveness and gratitude, because what you think about, you attract. And so I realized the benefit of that, because if I want to make change in the world, I think the more people that are meditating, the better. So I used to like a few different meditation podcasts, and they either changed to a paid format or they just took it off. And I was like, that's not right. So I reached out to a lot of friends and I said, that's my motto. It's like, it's there, it's free, and it's up for life. So there's about 30 episodes now, but I've more coming in, and you'll find one that resonates, which I've got breath work and different types of meditation. And some people think, oh, I must meditate for an hour. That's not true. I've got some that are a minute and some that are a lot longer.
Wow.
But you'll find something that
something for everyone. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm even attracting. So if someone is doing meditation and they want to send it, I kind of promote them as well. They just send me the recording and I just do a kind of brief intro. So for me, I'm kind of promoting my other podcast. That's what I'm getting out of it. But for them, I'm kind of guiding them. So if somebody really likes them, whether they have books written or something, so it's kind of a win-win. So that's the meditation one. The next one was because I'm in Poland and I have a son, he's 6, and I really try hard for this language. And my brother went to Holland and he was fluent after 2 years, and I don't have that ability. My brother can play every single instrument that was invented. I can't play anything. So, whatever part of the brain that works languages isn't for me. So it's not that I'm not trying. I was constantly listening to CDs and everything. So I thought a podcast would be a great way for me to learn. And I was searching, and the podcasts that I could find were scripted, which I really don't enjoy because it's not natural. And the other ones were only in Polish. And how can you learn or improve a language if they're saying something and you don't understand it? So I said, I'll create it. And my ex-wife was a Polish teacher. That's how I met her. I asked her, will we do this? And she agreed. And it's that's very consistent. I'm regularly putting out episodes. And it's only 5 to 7 minutes. It's fun. I leave in my errors because I believe that some people, they think if they're struggling, they can lose faith. So if I'm struggling with a word, I don't edit it. I leave it in.
Yeah.
And it's actually doing very well. And we're getting feedback. And I do the same. I cross-promote my other podcast. And my ex-wife is actually promoting her school. And she's getting clients from it. So it's another one.
Sounds excellent. So are you the kind of person that when you're looking for something and you don't find it, you do it yourself?
Yeah.
That's why you're so industrious.
That's why I want to change the world, because I was living in hope that someone else would do it, and I said no. I think I need to do this.
Nobody did it. Yeah. So now that leads us to the fourth, and as I understand, what you think is the most important podcast.
Yes.
That you call the Awakening podcast, and that you just started. And you mentioned a bit about the background there, that you lost everything. You were in the construction business, I understand, and all. Can you tell us a little bit? Walk us through the personal disaster that was that is behind the creation of this podcast.
So when I was investing in Poland, there was some syndicate. So I was a shareholder in a commercial property, in a building company, and different companies that I was doing, and I was basically the small buy for a lot of these investments. I had investors that were worth 20 million, 40 million, And I was like, I had a few properties in Ireland, and I released equity to get involved in these. But my business was doing well in Poland because I was managing all these properties, and other developers were coming to me, so I was managing a lot of stuff. And when the economy tanked, like, I just started reinvested and say into the commercial when they weren't able to pay their share, because I said, it'll come right. I never thought that somebody could go from 20 million to losing everything, even their business. So, like, nobody could foresee that. And in the end, what happens in Poland is when you're the president of a company, you're personally liable. And nobody had actually told me that. So they were okay. They just all walked away. And I was, as I say, held the crying baby. It was, I was personally liable. So my plan was that I had about $1 million in assets of my own. My wealth was about $1 million, and with the stuff I was doing, I was looking to make maybe $5 million, and it actually reversed. I became personally liable for $5 million, and
that's 5 million euros.
Euro, yeah. So, and between the different companies, I was able to. Like, I was seeing how the bailiffs were working, because the reality is a sheriff or a bailiff is supposed to get the best price so that they're looking after you, so that the excess then you have to pay. But they were working with valuers, and like one property, the commercial, it was worth over 4 million zloty, so 1 million euro, say, and they valued it at 500,000. And then they do a flash when they're putting it up on the screen for the public auction, because the first auction is at 75%, the second one is at 50%. They put it up for a second and take a screenshot and pretend that it was advertised, but it's not, so nobody turns up. Mm-hmm. And then they try to make sure the same thing happens the second round, and they have their own people that are buying it. There was another company that the people in the room, they were bribed. So they bribed the people and bought one of the houses. And like, when you're seeing this kind of thing, it's like, this is bad. But then when I'm researching it and looking at it, I could see the same going on in England, the same in Ireland. So I'm assuming it goes on all around the world.
It's the same in every country, you would say, or every country that you have looked into.
Yes. So, and it's terrible because, like, especially since I'm Irish, I mean, I'm keeping a kind of strong eye on what's going on there. And the amount of people that have been evicted and made homeless. And it's all orchestrated. You have the government voting on bills that are giving vulture funds all these powers. And it's sad, like, because
vulture funds are those that are taking over homes that are
and they're selling them at like 10%. So they, like, just say you were in trouble and they said to you, okay, you can buy your house at 10%. You would figure a way of getting 10% of the house. Even if you to promise someone, look, I'll give you double back or whatever, but you would figure a way out. But what they were doing is they're selling to them, and then they're going to the courts, and you're responsible for the excess and all the interest, and the banks, because the sheriffs and the solicitors, they have such high costs. So when I was fighting in Ireland for my own property, it's not like I don't know what way it works in your country, but in Ireland you have like 100 cases, maybe 150, and one judge, and then they're mainly barristers, which is they're kind of like 10,000, 15,000 euro a day. They're highly expensive to have a barrister, and they're representing the banks. And a lot of people aren't even turning up. So the judges, rule in favor of the bank, plus interest, plus costs. So you're not only paying the excess that the house, but you've all these different costs as well. And I was listening, and there was people going, oh, my husband died from stress of this. And then she'd have a piece of paper, I don't know what to do. And the judge says, I'm sorry for that, but bang, rule in favor of the banks. Another person said that we got KPMG to prove that they overcharged us 15,000 interest. And the judge said, when was that? 3 years ago. Oh, you should have took it up with them then. Bang, rule in favor. And when you see that, you're going, oh, what's going on here? And it was just consistent. Nobody was actually winning.
Industrial, in an industrial way almost.
Yeah. And the sad thing is, like, it's hard for me to know what's going on in most countries, but I'm assuming it's similar. In Ireland, then they're putting these families into direct provision. Like, some of them are put in hotels, and it's costing the taxpayer like 100,000 or more. And can you imagine a child or a family being brought up? Like, I spent 3 months when I was on construction site in a hotel. It's not a nice place to be. You get demented just being in a hotel room. It's not nice. You don't have a kitchen. So you can imagine a family trying to go up in that. So they're taking them out of a house that they could have had debt forgiveness or even say interest free for 5 years. And they've changed the whole system. So it's all it's a wealth grab. They're taking the land, they're taking the homes, and they're making people personally liable for the amount. So even if you got back on your feet, your bank account is just drained the minute the money's gone into the account because of a corrupt system.
So you lost
So,
everything, but how did you get back on your
well, I
feet
was
again?
kind of I was defending myself, and then say when they were trying their tricks, I was just reaching out. I was constantly contacting people, and one friend bought one of the properties, the commercial that I spoke about. So instead of me being personally liable for, I think, $500,000, or it would have been about €1 million at that stage, that one, he bought it and just it cleared the deck, and just with everything, I was just dealing, and getting things off the table, and just got it level. And
But this triggered you. Yeah,
this
triggered you
me
to start thinking of what is actually happening, what is going on behind the scenes, and with this system. And so you delved into that a little bit more. And what did you find?
It's like everything I'm looking. I mean, like even just looking at the judges and the different court cases and how they were given rulings. It's like, what's going on here? Like I had tenement houses, and basically the tenants weren't paying the rent. So the process is that you have to go through the court system to get get like an eviction order, but they don't get an eviction order. The city's supposed to provide accommodation for them, but the city said they don't have it. Then the city are supposed to pay you, but they don't. And you have to then sue the city. And you can't sue, like if you have 13 units in one block, you can't just sue as a block. You have to sue individually. And then you have to pay the 5% court fee plus the solicitor's fee up front. And the city has the best people working from to make sure that you don't get paid. So like if we had a mortgage on that one or anything, we would have lost the property. And I know a lot of people do. So they intentionally don't do that. And when you fight the city, they get every single, like all the local police to come for the inspection. If there's dirt around the building, the technical inspectors, they attack you in every single direction. And I saw this happening to me. And at times, then I just stopped making the court case because I said, this is costing us more to get money that we're entitled to. And when I talked to other people, the exact same thing happened. And some people actually lose their buildings because of that. And then the city puts it on auction and sells it. And it's just a land grab. And that seems to be going on in a lot of countries.
So this is about the corruption in the banking system, the whole money system, and the legal system also, I guess.
No, like, I mean, if you look, I don't know in Sweden, but in Ireland, in America, in Poland, all of these countries, when the government changes, the top legal judges change. That tells you that it's corrupt. Why would you have to do that?
Well, I don't think it works that way in all countries, actually, but
it works in the States. It works in Ireland. Yeah. It works in Poland like that. So a lot of countries, that proves that them countries. I mean, obviously there's some countries that aren't like that, but
and yeah, that's well, many people are witnessing these things like you do, but very few do anything about it, so to speak. But you're now starting this podcast to discuss these things. But I have listened a bit to your episodes, and I also hear that you're talking a lot about also other topics like medicine. You're very interested in medicine, or rather, should I say, alternative medicine. You talk a lot about that, and you invite guests that talk a lot about alternative medicine and how you can fix your health by self-healing and all that kind of thing. So how did that come about? Why did you become interested in those things? Was that on the same journey, so to speak?
No, it was a bit earlier that I kind of witnessed how that system worked. For me, I had sciatica, which is a trapped nerve shooting pain down your leg. And I had got that, and I tried physiotherapy. I tried a few different things, and the doctor was giving me tablets that were just upsetting my stomach and making me feel dizzy. And like I just kept trying different things, and then they told me I needed to get an epidural. So that's the injection
what women get when they're having
exactly, and like it is painful. You feel it because you have to be awake when they inject you, and then they put you to sleep, and they try to manipulate your body so that they free the nerve that they're saying is trapped. And when I woke up from that, I was getting pains down my other leg. And the other thing is when I remember trying to get up, and I was like paralyzed from the chest down, and that was a scary feeling. It was like took like half a day to wear off, and it didn't work. And like I I was depressed in that. Like when you're in constant pain, you can't think, you can't function. You know, and there's a lot of people have this sciatica, and some people get it down the arm. So then they said, "Oh, you must get surgery. We trim the disc, and that'll relieve it." And you know, when you're at your wit's end, you agree to what you're told. You just assume that they've got your best interest at
The
heart.
disc in the back,
So they're saying that the
spine?
disc protrudes and presses onto the nerve. So the lower back. So I got the operation for that, and no change. And
no change.
No change. And I don't know who got it to me. Somebody got me a book calling Healing Back Pain by Dr. John Sarno. And I read it, and it's like a kind of psychological thing. And I was able to cure myself. And I was like, what's going on here? And lots of people that I know had the same problem or that over the years. And I kept saying, here, try this. And most of them, they were able to cure. And I wonder why the medical system doesn't put that, first call. And the same with like the side effects on the medicine, and they want a customer for life, like that blood pressure tablets.
So what's your answer to that question? Why don't they talk about these alternative methods?
Because it's a money game. It's all about the money. It's a business. It's an evil business. And your health is not, if they make you healthy, you're no longer a customer. And that's not how they look at it. They want you to be their customer. And they want to keep, there's lots of cures for even cancer and different things. It's all quashed, or they attack that industry. They start taking down the websites from that. Anyone that has cured people of cancer, they've got way higher rates than going through the chemotherapy route. And yet they're attacked. They're shut down. And why is that? Because they're tapping into their budget. They don't want to be, it's a money machine that they're.
I always have problems with when people are talking about they and we, because I often don't understand what they mean by they, because it sounds enticing and it sounds like one-liner way of saying things. But who are they in this case? Is it because I have a hard time thinking that each and every doctor out there thinks in this way. I mean, there are lots of doctors out there who really want to help people, of course. I mean, that's obvious.
No, definitely. No, I mean, you can't tar everybody with the same brush. There is some very good doctors that really want to cure people. But the problem is, when I say they, I mean the pharmaceutical industry. So they have kickbacks for the drugs. And in Ireland, we've got all of the pharmaceutical companies. I think maybe one is not based there, but they're all based there because of the tax system. They don't pay tax really. It's, there's a loophole. There's very little tax, if any. And like when I was checking it, because I seen, say, Smithline Beecham were fined billions. It was in The Guardian for kickbacks. And when I was checking with a top consultant that I know, I said, which ones don't? And she said, they all do. And also regarding saying the training that the doctors get for natural health, they don't get any training. Like the guests, I'm not sure if you listen to all the episodes. One said they get 6 hours, and somebody else had mentioned the only country is Albania, where they do something like 6 months. But the rest of the world, it's just the pharmaceutical industry that they're doing. And we're like,
6 hours of training in diet,
in the 4 years or 6 years or whatever.
Yeah. Well, diet is basic. It's crucial, of course. What you eat is what you become.
Exactly. I mean, anything I have studied, the eating is the main thing. Like if you eat the proper foods and you get the proper minerals, you don't get sick. So I had studied. It was a book, The Wheel of Fortune. It was basically a Dr. Wrench. I don't know. It was about 70, 80 years ago that it was written, and he was studying the healthiest people, and they were in the Himalayas called the Hunza, and they were doing crop rotation, and they were living to over 100, and he'd done tests on rats for that, and the rats have similar organs to a human, so a rat of 2 years is equivalent to a human of about 50. So when they done the test of the 1,000 rats, there was no tumors, no dermatitis, no sinus problem, nothing. They were all perfect. And then they gave them the poor Indian food, and they got the same, all tumors, cancers, everything. And they gave the English poor man's food, and they were cannibalistic after 16 days. And like, that makes such a difference. And the reality is we've got GMO now. We've got all these toxins, aspartame, and all these different things in the food. Like they're telling us the government has our best interest at heart. But yet, why are they allowing all these toxins? Why do they allow a bottle of, say, water that's really full of 10 or 15% sugar just because it's a nice little cuddly animal on it for children to be taking? It's all orchestrated. They want to keep us in.
How have you changed your life, your way of living, and your way of your contacts with the health system after having these insights? What are you doing?
Staying away from the doctors.
You're staying away from the doctors. Do you eat healthy foods? Do you eat meat, for instance? Is that an issue for you?
I do eat meat, but I try to make sure that it's kind of GMO free, and it's that they're free range. I mean, it's hard to that's even a bit hairy fairy at times. There's times that they're stamped as free range and they're not. I would definitely like to cut down. I don't eat as much meat as I did years ago. I mean, there was times where you could have meat three times a day. So now it's maybe 5 times a week at one meal, and maybe less.
I guess they eat a lot of meat in Poland, don't they? So that's quite common.
No,
well, I guess in Ireland as well. Anyway, well, it's really, I mean, what you're saying is I'm game on many of your points here. I think, of course, it has. I mean, what we eat is so important, and Western medicine and Western health system is skewed, of course, in many respects. But I also, well, I'm a positive person by nature, and I'm also a nerd. You can say I'm a statistics and a trend nerd. So I love looking at trends and statistics and numbers. And I mean, you can trust if you know where to look for it. You can find trustworthy numbers and figures and trends and statistics. And if what you are saying is completely true, if you extrapolate that thought that whoever they are, the companies that want to make money, I guess, pharmaceutical companies, food companies, if they are putting almost poisonous additives in our food and trying to give us medicine that is not good for us, we should see a decline in health on a broad scale here. And we're not seeing that, actually. Life expectancy is rising. People are healthier. And I mean, before antibiotics, people died in droves. And before they started vaccinating, for instance, children in Africa against against measles, sorry, they died in droves from that as well. So, I mean, I have a hard time thinking that all this is bad, but of course you have to look what's happening, and you have to look into the details, and you have to think for yourself. That's the main thing. What's your comment on this comment?
Well, what you say, to think for yourself. Like I even say in my book, don't even believe what I'm saying. Research it. And even with your research, because like you're on about, you can check certain statistics. Like there was even one, say, on climate change that was done, and NASA and others, they doctored the figures to make it look like the right way. So when there was is it a meteorologist, the weather guy, he went into the Senate and he had all the figures and he was explaining how they doctored them. I even question every single thing I do now. So like, even if you look into Google and say, is 5G safe? You go in, the first 5 pages are saying it is safe. But if you look at other things, like I've got reports from ex-military people that are saying the dangers. So sometimes we can look at all these different statistics, and unfortunately there's so many people involved in this, like I would say, trying to keep us ill. I mean, like if I get, you're on about antibiotics. If I was taking antibiotics, and it happened with my children, when you give them antibiotics, their immune system goes down and they get sick again, And sometimes you'll see it, especially at the younger age of the kids, they get sick. Is it the average of something like 6 times that they're taking?
Yeah, but isn't that a matter of how often you take them and how much? I mean, if you take antibiotics when you have an acute illness and you're really sick and you haven't taken it for 10 years, wouldn't that be okay?
No, there was times where, I'm not saying that pharmacy, like if you have a crash or something, like no alternative medicine is going to. Yeah. We do need that industry. I'm not saying that it has.
And if you break a leg, of course, it has to be adjusted.
Exactly. But like, say for the antibiotics, like I mean, if I feel something coming on, I'll take oregano and coconut oil. I'll take turmeric and honey, and things like that, and it cures you. So why aren't people? They should be trying to do this first instead of stuff that's actually killing some of the bugs in your stomach that we actually need. I know there's times you get some really heavy ones and you have to because it's so dangerous. I'm not saying that the antibiotics we don't need antibiotics. Of course, there's times you definitely do, but there's people going in as a little sniffle or something like that, and it depends on the doctor as well. Some doctors are they prescribe, they don't even ask, they don't even go into detail. There's a lot that are compassionate, they listen exactly, and it's in their interest to make you healthy because they really care. And that's the difference. We need more like that.
The other thing about Western medicine is that it targets the symptoms, not the cause of the disease. But you're also, you're a positive person yourself. I know that, and I've seen also what you've written on your podcast introduction text there. That this is not about you say that this is not conspiracy theories, and because these are facts, and you want to be positive. You want to help people to find ways of solving their problems without utilizing these corrupt systems. And that's all good. I'm for that. For instance, I heard you also talking on another podcast and saying, giving the advice to people to listen less to the news. And I agree on that. I have cut down on the news myself. I'm a journalist, but I have cut down a lot because I know that it makes you feel miserable after a while if you listen too much. You need to know something about what's happening, but you will not miss big things that you just won't. You will know anyway, so you don't have to look for it. But what I was thinking here is that the reason why I have cut down on the news is mainly that the news is actually too much into, especially the tabloids, they're too much into fear-mongering and talking about these things a little bit like you are talking about also, but you do it in a different way. But they're scaring people by saying, oh, this additive can be dangerous for you. You can die. You can get cancer from this, and stay away from that. And even those things that you were talking about, microwaves can be dangerous for you. It's all there all the time. So people get scared, and I think that like you were mentioning, what you put out, you get back. If you're constantly worried about what is happening out there, and constantly worried about what you eat, and constantly worried about radiation and whatever, you will get sick. I think that's the main reason why people get sick, because they worry. So I'm more into the meditation part of your journey here. I'm all for that, because if you have the inner tranquility and calm, and you trust yourself, that's the most important. Then you can also trust others, and you can just think for yourself what you should eat and what you should do with this and that, and then I think things will be good for you. So that's just a comment I have on the whole thing.
I agree with you. Because if you start to, and I tell people, don't be thinking of the negative all the time. Don't be surrounding yourself with, listening to this all the time and having that as the conversation, because it will get you down. Go out in nature, start, talking to positive people, and start watching comedies, change it. You can't go on the other side of the spectrum of totally ignoring what's going on either, because if you do nothing, then there's so many bad things are happening and made changes that you're going, how did this happen? So you can't exactly ignore stuff. But if there's something, like, I know that I don't watch any news, and if the radio comes up, but if there's something important that I need to know, you'll find it. Facebook will start popping it up, or somebody will mention it. You will find out. So it's not that you're missing anything by not watching CNN or BBC or any of these ones.
No, you can. I'm a journalist, so I'm interested in the ordinary traditional news also. So I watch it sometimes, but I watch it with some kind of distance. I know, okay, so they're going that path today. I don't have to listen to that, but this was interesting, so I pick up some things that I think are interesting. But yes, I was going to ask about the name of the podcast here. You call it Awakening, and to me, it's a great name. And to me, the word awakening, the term awakening, has somewhat spiritual connotations, you might say. Is that the case here too, or do you mean by awakening that people need to awaken to seeing the corruption that is going on in different sectors of the society?
think it's actually connected. I think
Yeah,
by waking up, you can you see what's going on, and you kind of wake up inside as well, and you kind of you learn a few things, not to be holding grudges. It all connects, and that's why
yeah,
some of the stories are, people that have kind of transformed. And like what I think is, once you wake up, like even whether spiritually, you don't go back. You never go, oh, I'm not doing that no more and going back to my usual. You never see anybody. And you've probably noticed that there's a lot more people that are kind
mm,
of, as I call them, becoming awake in the world.
mm, mm. That's interesting, fascinating, and very, very, very well intended, of course. Um, and we were talking before about you not calling these conspiracy theories but truths, and well, wouldn't all conspiracy theorists say that actually? That
Well, I mean,
it is
from
the
what I've
truth.
heard, is the CIA created that word so that then they can start throwing out a few lies, and then people, because I know you can fall into that trap, because you'll get something, you surround yourself with a few people, and someone
Yeah,
will post something, and you'll share it, and it's thrown out intentionally so that they know it's false, and then people go, what you're putting out is all false.
yeah,
So you have to be very careful of it. But if it happens, it happens. I don't knock myself, because you're doing it from the best intentions. And if you look at all the kind of roads of who's pulling the strings, they normally come back to the same people. So when you see something with the Rockefellers or something like that, you
mm,
go, okay, and you just assume that it's done. But eventually, you for me, I see different people. So some people do the research before they put it up, and
yeah,
then and others just put it up once it's attacking anyone. So
yeah,
you eventually kind of realize, okay, no, I know they're just putting up, they're doing it with the best intentions of trying to make people aware, but
yeah,
they can fall for a trap.
mm,
And I think, I mean, I do research myself, and sometimes that you just know what they're saying is incorrect.
mm,
Based
mm,
on document, like people will reach out to you, people will give you information because they're
mm,
afraid to actually do it themselves. And
mm,
sometimes you get stuff that I would love to share a lot of the stuff or put it
mm,
up, but I know that I'd get in trouble from doing that. And there's times you have to just hold back. But when you know information, you
mm.
know that you just have to
Is
be
that what
careful.
you're going to do here with this podcast? You're going to invite people who want to tell their stories about corruption, but they don't want to. If they want to be anonymous, they wouldn't go on your podcast even.
Well, I have one that will be, so I won't be doing the video. And I know the guy, he's going to expose the kind of banking industry, the
Yeah,
trading side. And a lot of the people actually, they're okay. And I've had, because when I know somebody, it's different, because you know their journey and everything. But sometimes there'll be people reaching out, and I'm not going to put somebody up that I don't know, because that could be like another plant as well. Somebody could be saying, I'm going to expose such a thing. And if you fall for it, and then you're just exposed, and then the whole credibility goes down the
yeah,
road. So
yeah,
even if it's like the story of the century, I don't want to do it unless somebody, like, I can understand if someone is exposing something that can get them into real trouble, but they'd have to
mm,
prove to me
yeah,
that. And I know I'd obviously remain confidential about that, but I'd have to
yeah.
be 100% sure that what they're saying, they're not just trying to trick me.
It's a bit of a
And
dilemma, but yeah,
exactly.
they have that in traditional media as well when they are doing this. They're digging deep in their stories. But maybe you can do solo casts sometimes and just tell the story that you've heard if the person
No, I
doesn't
was
want to.
thinking of doing, because I just put up another one out today, and I was thinking of doing the next one, of some of the stories, because a lot of the stuff, there'll be things that I would just kind of just give some details. They don't have to be too long, maybe 10 minutes, but it's
Yeah,
enough to make people start thinking.
yeah,
And just like the little tips, as you mentioned, the health and stuff like that. I don't encourage anyone to make radical change, because you stress yourself out. But if you can say, all right, just say, like we talked about the microwaves. Okay, you realize that's, and then even you don't trust me, but okay, I'll start researching, and then you find out,
mm,
okay, yeah,
mm,
they're not great. Then you get rid of that. Just make a little change, and by the end of the year, all these small little, changes, they add up, and you're just making,
yeah.
your health will be benefit from it.
Talking about microwaves and electricity, I have a personal insight into that kind of problem because I had my father. He passed away earlier this year, and he also his second wife, not my mother, but his second wife passed away the year before that, and she had a lot of health problems over the years. One of them being that she was allergic to electricity. I don't know what the term is in English, but you know the thing.
I know what
And
you
that
mean.
started in the 90s. And then at that time, this was almost 30 years ago, there weren't that much electricity in the homes, in the houses, in the offices. I mean, today we have electricity everywhere, and we have all these devices. And it went a little bit up and down, but we weren't allowed to have our cell phones on when we were in the house, and because she felt bad, you know. And I suspected that it was a bit psychosomatic, the whole thing, which I think was proven when we sometimes forgot to turn off our devices, and she didn't notice anything. So I don't know if this would have been a very, 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 very big problem. We would have seen enormous increases in health problems from this by now, I would say. I mean, we don't have to delve into this too much, but I mean, it's just a matter of looking from a helicopter perspective. What is happening? What are the trends? How does the health look in the population at large? You know, and we have these enormous amounts of masts with 4G now, and soon 5G, and I don't know. I just can't. I have a hard time understanding why this should be such an enormous health problem.
Well, first, I'm very sorry about your father. I wasn't aware of that he passed this year.
Yeah, he was 91 years old, so he was. That was okay. Thank you for your thoughts.
On like, if we look at, say, the health, because I think you've a 1 in 3 chance of getting cancer in the US. You know, so that's a statistic that should scare you. If you look at, say, the frequencies, I mean, I have one of the devices as well, and like the Wi-Fi gives a huge reading. If you're near a television, it gets a huge reading. Like you can get blockers, frequency blockers, or kind of they stop the signal. Like the phones, they are dangerous, but we've got to a stage where we can't live without them. We've become conditioned to just have our phones all the time. I don't know, have you ever gone on a holiday and you just left your phone away? But the freedom that it brings, and you, like, the first few days are kind of, you know, you feel, oh, I'm missing something. But once you get over that, it's like relief, and you feel
yeah, but
good.
that's more a psychological thing, I think.
I don't know, like, because I'll send you actually a report, right? Because it's going to be in the book, and it's from Barry Trower, and on the frequencies, and they're on about the damage. And the one thing that scared me was, and he actually challenged anybody to prove him wrong, and nobody has done so. And, you know, he's on about that, like when a baby's born, you know, the first 100 days, there's no protection. And most people have the telephone on the belly as they're texting away. And, you know, we see a lot of like autism, and like, you know, they're trying to, like, how do we say what's causing this? Some people are going down the vaccine route. But if you look at when the autism started really jumping through the roof, it kind of tends to be from the time we had mobile phones that became kind of, you know.
Well, yeah, I've heard about that. I know that people are looking into that. So it's interesting. And I mean, I'm open to any explanation. I just
so he basically says
I
that
don't want to get scared. I just want to.
No.
Of course, I want to know what's happening. That's obvious. I want to know what's happening. Sure thing, but fear is our biggest enemy, I think.
Yeah, no, I think just awareness, and then to make
awareness
and take action. I think not to be. You're dead right. If you start fearing everything, you attract the fear into you, and you start the cells get affected, and you start getting disease from that. So don't. Yeah, you're right. You know, not to have fear mongering, but just to make conscious decisions. And, you know, like, if you've got all these smart devices, like when you check with the meter, you can see that they're giving high readings, like, you know, when you're so close. So if you've got a lot of kids and they're hanging out next to these things, they're playing right next to these things, I don't think they're good for them. You know,
maybe one day we will see the results of this.
Yeah.
Big.
And, like, you know, you talk about the 5G. Like, I remember in the Senate that they had all of the top Sprite, Horizon, and all the top American companies. And they were questioned, okay, what tests did you do? None. You know, like, why? And I know that there was an independent test done, and it was causing tumors in rats. So going back to the Hunza, we've got a connection there. So if it is so good and it is so great, don't be blasting it out. Don't be putting it, like Elon Musk is putting thousands of satellites up that you can't get away from it now at this stage. Let's prove its safety if that's the case. Let's prove it's safe. If it's safe, yeah, we're all up for technology making life easier. But from all the different people that I'm seeing, all these people that are kind of ex-military coming out saying how dangerous it is, we should maybe listen to them instead of just the people that are trying to pretend that it's okay.
Yeah, sure. We should listen to everyone that has anything to say about these things, knows about it. So, Roy, fascinating discussion here. I would never put any labels on you or anyone else who, honestly and with good intentions, tries to make the world a better place. I mean, that's the main thing. But I mean, some people would probably put labels on you, say, call you a querulent or whatever. But let them do that. I mean, exactly. It doesn't mean anything. So, where can our listeners now find your podcast? First, the Awakening podcast, of course, but also the other ones.
TheAwakeningPodcast.org is where they'll find that. And the other ones, my name, roycoughlan.com. I have the 4 podcasts that are shown there. So you go in and they're available on about 10 different platforms on iTunes, Google. So they'll find it there.
Okay, thank you, Roy Coughlan. Thank you for being my guest, and good luck with your very important and fine task that you have taken on.
Thanks very much for having me on the show. Enjoyed it.